And welcome back to the Baseball Development Hub podcast. My name is Trevor Powers, and I am joined, as always, by co-host of this podcast, Dan Galati. Dan, very excited for this episode as we have a two-time guest on the podcast, our resident mental performance coach, Michael Huber. Michael, thank you for taking the time on this early Sunday morning and chatting with us.
Wow. I mean, getting up at 7:30 to record this with you guys with that intro, I'll get on at 6:30. That's great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, we try our best. We try our best. You taught us so much the first time you were on, which I believe was June. So for anybody who's tuning in now and wants to hear the wealth and more of the background on what you've done and where you've come from and how you got into this industry, obviously head back there. Today, we're going to talk specifically about the preseason transitioning to the season. It's something Dan and I have talked about wanting to hit on the podcast for a while. So when you reached out and wanted to connect again, it felt like it was a seamless transition. So one of the fascinating parts, and it's something Dan and I have covered on this podcast a couple times, is the transition out of the training environment, which is our training facilities, our bullpens in a controlled indoor environment, our BP sessions, all of those, into games. And I know you're having a lot of these conversations right now. What's that conversation with those guys of getting them to understand that all that training, that's on the back burner now? We got to focus on performing now.
Yeah. And it's probably one of the biggest challenges that I have as a mental performance coach, especially with young guys, is because there's so much emphasis on the mechanical, the way their body moves, right? The execution of pitches now with data and things like that. So getting them into the mindset of, hey, I've got to let that go, right? And go compete when it comes. So like a couple things come to mind with that, right? Like the training that I'm doing with them in the preseason is sort of to get them ready for the end season. So it's controlling the controllable stuff, right? Like understanding, having a really, really well-defined awareness of what you can and can't control, right? Because once you get on that field, once that ball leaves your hand or once that ball leaves, the barrel of your bat, there's really not that much you could do about it, right? So let's like really narrow down the focus to what are we doing pitch to pitch, right? And then building those like routines, right? What I might call a reset, someone might call them something else, but really it's how do I use that 15 or 20 seconds in between pitches, right? So that I know, okay, whatever just happened, whether it was a good or bad result, so to speak, let it go, right? Take a deep breath, refocus myself, and then really commit to what I'm doing on the next pitch, win the next pitch, right? An 0 for 0 mentality is something I'm working on with a high school kid now, right? Everybody relates to something different, but really getting them into that mindset, but also having them, and we talked about this before we hit record, but having them practice some of that stuff, right? It's hard to practice some of these mental tools, training tools in a preseason because doesn't feel like it's necessary. But that's where you challenge yourself, right? To say, hey, we go from, sort of really, really like high level training to live at bats, say for instance, or scrimmages. You want to be applying the stuff we're working on now in January and February in those more competitive environments. So we build up to how do I get a real good handle on my tools? And then I have to commit, right? Commitment is a big word for me. Let it go, man. Just go play. Because if you're thinking about what you need to do to execute the way your body moves in a game, you're probably screwed. Right. So it's hard. It really is hard. Sometimes they need that concrete evidence from a game to then reflect and then adjust. But, that's where I'm trying to get them into that mindset of, hey, let's practice this stuff. Let's have a plan and then let's go execute the plan. And if it doesn't happen when you get onto the field in a game, let's revisit and refine. It's not the end of the world. We got to just keep working on getting better.
Trevor and I, and we talked about this before we recorded as well, but, we always talk about how so many guys, they get obsessed with their numbers and their stats are everything to them. Do you have conversations with them about redefining success and are there any tools that you can give them to be like, hey, we got to get away from that? And as you mentioned, like focus on the between pitch stuff and your process. And how do you go about strategizing that for guys? Because that can be hard to kind of go away for a player where like if they've always looked at their batting average, now I can't anymore.
Yeah. So redefining success is a great point, Dan. Like for me, what I've come to believe, and this is I've developed over time. I think I always believed it, but I didn't really have the words to put around it. I think that real sustainable confidence comes in identity, right? Also a word that we sort of kicked around a little bit before we hit record. Knowing who I am and what I want to do before I do it is the most important thing, right? If I go to the plate and I maintain my composure and I execute my routines and I barrel up a ball and I hit it right at the shortstop or the center fielder, being able to go, hey, I did everything that I wanted to do, right? I executed my plan. I stayed relaxed and I drove the ball back up the middle and it just went to somebody. I'm good with that. Right now, that's a process that takes time, right? So I don't know if I shared this with Trevor the first time, but I can't remember since it was so long ago. One of my favorite things to tell a young guy is, when did you start playing baseball? And they'll say, I'm 4 or 5 years old, right? You guys could probably relate to this, right? Did you play T-ball? Most kids did. I didn't, but most kids did. What happened in T-ball when you got to the plate? You got your little helmet wobbling and you got your big bat and whatever, and you hit the ball off the tee and it goes like this, blip, 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 3 inches. And everyone, you get to first base and everybody goes, yay, that was so wonderful. What was wonderful about it? Nothing. You learn to respond to that feedback. Like, if I get onto first base, I'm good. And if I don't get on the first base, everybody goes, oh, and they groan, oh, it was, so like getting them out of that mindset of, hey, you don't have to get on base. You don't have to get a hit. You don't have to get a double to feel good about what you did. You got to know what's important and then go do it. Because if you know who you are and you go do it and the result doesn't match up, you're still going to be steady, right? You're still going to be rooted versus, oh, I only feel good when I do well. Now, if I don't do well, I feel bad about myself. But then if I do well, right? And I think I've seen some things about this and I've wrote about this and thought about it myself, which is guys are real hot. They actually tend to crater into slumps because they think it's going to be great. It's going to keep being great. Or I need to put pressure on myself for it to keep going versus, hey, that was great. I'm 5 for my first 10. But what about this at bat? Right. What do I want to do on this at bat? I want to do A, B, and C. If I do A, B, and C, that's in my control. It was success. So to go back to the original question, absolutely. Redefining success is we're doing all the time. And it's a process over time because of the way baseball goes, the way we're coached, the way we're reinforced over time. So you got to break those patterns, and that can take years with some guys.
I love that T-ball example. Like, even just like you can hear the audible groan in the crowd with the kid. You don't even think about how that still impacts a kid once he gets to high school baseball. That's amazing. And I had never pulled back that thread to that extent, which is awesome. And you just taught me something there that I'm definitely going to use in the near future. You mentioned in passing there, and I think this is a really good part of with the redefining successes. How do they handle going 5 for 10 or being 7 for 10 or being on a heater? How important is levelness in this of like not also getting too high? Because again, we know in baseball, even when we get too high, there's the inevitable slope that's going to crash us to the ground. And if we aren't prepared for at least that's coming in the future, that's going to hurt even more on the mental side.
Yeah, I think, yes, I agree. Right. And I think in a perfect world, as a mental performance coach, certainly I would have a player apply these, resets and tools that they use on a pitch by pitch or an at bat by at bat basis, because the result's gone. Whatever the result was, it was a good result. I'm 5 for 10. That's over. Now, what am I going to do right now? That's where compete happens, right? Compete happens in the present moment. So if I can narrow down my focus to compete on this pitch, whatever it looks like, regardless of circumstance or regardless of what came before or after, now I'm going to give myself the best chance to succeed. That's really hard with success, right? Guys on a heater, right? And they're just riding it. And the number one questions I'll ask a kid is, when you're going well, what are you doing? And they're like, I'm not thinking. Okay, great. However, that's how common is that? Not very common, right? We go on a heater 5 for 10, but for the next 90 at bats, we're thinking about something even when we're good. So you got to be ready for that, right? But I think it's hard to train them to get into that mindset of, no matter what happens, good or bad, I want you to do the same thing. It's usually, when it's bad, I do it. When it's good, I don't do anything until bad happens. And then when bad happens, they want to fix it. Which, that's human nature, and it's fine. That's how they get motivated. I'm trying to angle them towards, hey, let's do it all the time. But listen, if they do it only when things are going poorly, and then things are going well, and then they go back off the cliff they go down the slope. Well, at least then now I have some concrete sort of evidence to say, hey, if you would have focused on staying present, 0 for 0 mentality when you were going good, it might have lasted longer, right? Now they can connect the dots and say, okay, I get it. Versus, oh, why do I have to do this when I'm going good? I'm just going good. I'm going to ride it. And I think that's probably the biggest misconception for young players, that they don't have to do anything when things are going well versus, hey, the process is the process regardless of the result.
I love that you keep mentioning like the pre-pitch or pre-pitch routine is what I would refer to it as. And I think that's so important for people, and it's sometimes hard to get guys to buy into it. Could you give us an example? I know everyone probably has different ones, but can you give us an example of one or two that you know of for guys that you think are pretty successful that help guys kind of refocus or recenter in between each pitch?
The best one I could give you is probably the highest level guy I've ever worked with in my life. And I got a handoff. Like I don't know where he's at now. We haven't talked in a while, but he was in the Giants system and then he went into another system. And I got him when he just had gotten drafted. And they had a really good mental skills coach there who I actually happen to know a little bit. And they kind of gave him this idea of thinking about his sort of pre-pitch as a funnel, right? So it's kind of like the gold standard for what I show my guys, right? He's like, every single pitch, I want to be funneling out the nonsense, right? Stuff I can't do anything about. So it was like a 4-level sort of cue that he used in 20 seconds, while you got a pitch clock on you. All right, I'm going to flush the last pitch, no matter what it was, good, bad, or otherwise, flush it. Take a deep breath, tell myself to attack, right? I'm 2-0. I can still attack because I can. It's up to me. I could be 3-0 in attack. It could be 3-1. It doesn't matter what the count is. I can always be attacking, even if situationally I've got to maybe do it in a different way. And now I'm ready to go. And once I tell myself I'm ready to go, now I'm going, right? And to go back to what we started with, like we were talking about doing that in catch play and flat ground and bullpens and in the bullpen before again, right? Like just this sort of maniacal sort of consistency in every single pitch. I'm funneling out the non-controllable stuff and I'm really dialing it into relax, let go, relax, get into an attack mindset and let it rip, right? And if I did that on every single pitch, I'm good. He was a high-level guy. He played at a high level in college. He was a high draft pick, really smart, and he wasn't like uber talented in the grand scheme of things, and that he had to really work to get himself to that place. So I think he had that blue collar mindset of, hey, like I got to really be like mentally strong to get myself to the next level, right? But like taking that and trying to give it to other kids and say like, you need to do this all the time. It's not going to be a perfect success rate, but if you're not thinking about every pitch, like where you want to be when that ball leaves your hands with intent, you're going to get left behind. You're going to get caught up in the emotion of, that one spun out. Oh, all right. Now I got to throw a strike. And now it's 2-0. And then you see the body language go, and then the next thing you know, it's 3-0. And then, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's reactions. It's true, right? Oh, roll their eyes. And the coach sees it and they're like, oh, here we go. Right. Like just focus on the next pitch. Know what you want to do. And that's one of my biggest, we haven't really talked about this. It's interesting, and we could get into this if you want to, but like my biggest challenge is I'm not with them, right? Like I'm not on staff like you guys are on staff, right? The ability to do that on a daily basis and see a kid, hey, what's up, Johnny? Put your arm around, how you doing? All right, hey, how's that going? Or I just saw you out there in your bullpen, like, did you do this? I don't have that. I'm only getting one side of the story. So for the coaches who are in those situations who see the kid every day, that's a huge advantage to be able to be like, hey, are you using your pre-pitch routine? Did you do it? Right? Yeah. Let's work on that today in your bullpen, not just let's work on, breaking off sliders. So it's really, to me, it's really important because if they have command of that, then they can get through anything, even if the results are bad in that particular outing.
It's unbelievable because I think it's so much that pre-pitch routine and being able to, I don't know what the right word is, but it's almost like just being able to have a short memory, right?
Yeah.
If anyone watched Ted Lasso, right, he told his players to be like a goldfish, right? Like, and just because they have a 10-second memory. In your opinion, I'm going to kind of like take it out a little bit and 10,000 foot view in your opinion a little bit. I think baseball is so fascinating because so much of it is like internal battle. What about baseball though is like, do you think makes it such a mental battle day in and day out for guys? Is it just the fact that it's so dang hard and a 300 batting average is successful, even though that means you're failing, 7 out of 10 times? What about it do you think makes baseball such a mental internal grind for guys?
I mean, I think we've touched on them. I mean, if you add them up, right, you've got statistics, right? You're measured, your numbers are measured, and now at a much more scrutinized at a much higher level, not just your outputs, but your spin rate and your exit velocity. And all those things are factored into your value as a player, which your identity is the next one, right? If baseball is my identity and I'm not getting the results that I want, and I look at this and go, someone's saying, well, I'm not good enough because my ERA is 5 or my spin rate's too low or my exit velocity is too low, I think I'm a bad person, right? There's that. Then there's the time, right? There's the time element. I've got all this time to think, right? And if I don't know where to put my attention at the right time, it can just send me into a total spiral, right? And so there's all these things that you put them together. And then you've got the external stuff, right? Listen, sometimes there's the coach athlete relationship. We talked a little bit about this before we recorded. And I tell kids this all the time, right? It goes a two-way street, right? Kids are complaining about, I don't know where I'm at, or I don't know what the coach thinks of me, or I'm not playing. But then there's this other way of like, if you don't know, you can go ask your coach, right? There's that uncertainty in that relationship about what my role is and where I stand. That drives kids crazy. There's all this stuff, right? So like you got the game specific stuff, and then you just got the normal mental human condition stuff of like uncertainty and anxiety. You put that all together and then everybody's watching you, right? If you're a hitter, like, yeah, there's 9 guys in the field, but you're the only one in the box, and you're the pitcher. Yeah, there's 8 guys behind you, but you're the only one doing it. Like there's also a lot of scrutiny in that way, right? Like, so it takes a real special animal to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to go play this game and be, I'm going to compete right now, no matter what. I don't care. Like having fun, Dan, Trevor, like to me, like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's hokey and maybe whatever, but I'm telling you, like, go enjoy this because you know what? One day it's going to be over. Like I'm thinking to myself, like, shit, like I would love to be out there with that uniform on in front of all those people playing the greatest freaking game in the entire world. And you're looking at that as a referendum on your value as a human being. Nah, man, like go play, like enjoy it. Because if you enjoy it and you smile and you have fun, the best performances come out from there too. And I think that's a really hard thing because like, it's just a lot of it's conditioning because over time we're just conditioned to believe that we have to play well to be happy. Right. We almost feel guilty that, if we're enjoying ourselves when we're not playing well, there's something wrong. We can't feel good. We can't be a leader, right? Leadership. We can talk about that. Guys shut down when they're not playing well. They don't lead their teammates, even though they're really a leader. Well, can I be a leader no matter what? That's in my control, right? Like that's a role model. Well, we got to work on that too, right? That comes up a lot for me as well. Sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, awesome. I kind of want to I almost sat there and let it simmer for a little bit and told people to rewind for 30 seconds because that ending right there was so good and so impactful. The thing that you hit a couple chords for me as things that really, and part of the reason that I think of these things is because it's stuff I struggled with, the time, right? And I always used to tell people this. It's actually kind of sad when you actually think about it. I didn't really enjoy playing baseball. Right. I was good at it. That's what I tell everybody, right? Like good enough to play Division III college baseball. That's why I played. But the reason I didn't enjoy playing baseball was because of that time element. I would sit in center field and be like, man, I stink. I can't hit. What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with my swing? I played hockey growing up. Never had a moment to think. That game's so fast paced. It's such a beautiful sport. Boom, boom, boom. Puck's on your stick. Okay, pick your head up. Where's it going? Boom, boom. You're off the ice. You're exhausted, right? And I always use that example because hockey was like my enjoyment in sport, but baseball wasn't because I couldn't handle the time. How do you coach guys through that? Because it's something that even still to this day I struggle with. Of like, because it is human nature, as you've mentioned a couple times, to be like you're 0 for 3. Even if you don't pay attention to stats, that's in your head. You're not an idiot. You just struck out your last 3 at bats, and you have time in center field or left field or whatever, especially as an outfielder position that's not mentally in the game every moment, where you just sit there and spewing, just stewing. You're just like, oh, okay, what's this game? What do I have to do next? How do I fix it? Right? How do you coach guys through that?
It's hard. And I had the same experience as a baseball player. You're out there practicing your swing in the field when you're supposed to be fielding the ball, right? Like, oh, what did I do? Oh, yeah. Like, and then next thing you know, the ball's hit your way and you boot it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to coach that, Trevor. Like, so like one of the things that I think is a really good tool for that is practicing meditation, right? Because the point of meditation is just what you described. My mind wanders and I catch it wandering and I bring it back to the present moment, right? I'm in center field. I'm thinking about my last at bat. I can't believe I'm over 3. Hey, I'm not supposed to be thinking about that. Let's come back and take a deep breath and find the game, right? Like for me, like when I played, and I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I played as an adult. Again, I picked the game up at 25 and I played till I was 40. So I really learned what it meant to fail because I sucked. I had to learn to play again, but I loved it so much. It almost didn't matter at a certain point. Like I was like, I just want to get on a plane and go to Florida and play in a tournament with my buddies. And if I go for 4 and we lose by 80, which I think actually happened, at times, it didn't matter. Right. But I learned that I was wandering all over the place. And I was like, I got to find this game. The game is in the pitcher's hand. When my mind would wander, I'd go find the ball, right? Game's here. I can't be here. So practicing that away from the field. And then in the game, it's like, hey, when you're wandering, bring it back to something. Have a focal point, have an anchor. You cannot be thinking about that because they do get it when you say just what you said. Oh, I was thinking about my last at bat. Next thing you know, ball hit my way, and I make another error. And now I got 2 errors under my belt, 2 mistakes under my belt that now become 3 mistakes and 4 mistakes and put more pressure. So they get that. Getting them to do the work to do that is a little bit harder, but that's why they want a mental performance coach. They need a big part of this process for me is also accountability, right? Holding them accountable in a very, I don't say healthy way. That's not fair, but like just in a way where it's non-judgmental. Like, hey, I'm here to support you. If you don't want to do it, it's not my job to tell you what to do, right? Your coach is going to do that. Your mom and dad are going to do that. I don't want to be that guy, but you also need to know that you have these tools available to you. And if you choose not to avail yourself of them, the only person that you have to blame is you. And I want to touch on what you said about hockey, right? Because that's a really interesting point. I've had a lot of baseball players who also play hockey, and it was the same exact thing, right? Hockey's fun. I'm with my boys. We're skating. We're hitting. This is great. But then I have hockey players who the game moves fast, and just because the game moves fast doesn't mean they don't think. They have a bad shift. They go back to the bench like, oh, that was a terrible shift. Stop moving my skates. Oh, whatever. And now, so it's the identity piece of it that really matters. Like hockey wasn't your identity. Baseball was, right? When a sport is your identity, no matter what you do, it's really hard to enjoy it because it's like, well, this is who I am. And if I can't be good at it, what the hell's the point?
I love this because in the last couple answers, not only have you touched on identity, but you keep touching on something that really strikes with me is they don't have, they don't love it anymore, or they loved it when they were little, right? And I think that's like, you don't end up playing college baseball if you didn't start out playing t-ball, little league, and it was all you could think about, right? You were obsessed with it, and that's why you were able to progress to that point. But somewhere along the lines, I don't know if it's pressure, if it's because the stakes get raised as you move up in levels because it gets harder because everyone's good. But like, how do you get guys back to that mindset of, man, why did you start playing this game? Where did that love go? Because I think for so many guys, if they went out there every day, like they probably did when they were 8, 9 years old in the summer with their friends from their local town, they would enjoy it a lot more. And they would probably have a little bit more success because when you were 8 years old, yes, you might've been reacting, like you said, to the positive feedback of the parents and everything, but you didn't know your batting average at 8 years old, or maybe there's a kid out there who does, but most 8-year-olds don't.
Yeah. Well, I think it's exactly the way you started, which is I think you got to ask them those questions. You got to raise that awareness of like, when you were having fun playing this game, whether it was 8 or 12 or 15 or whatever, when you were having fun playing this game, what did it look like? Right? How did it affect your performance? Because, that is something that I think is really important. Being able to connect the behavior to the outcome is something that will motivate a kid, right? So like, if I can get a kid to say, yeah, you know what? I was having fun in high school because I was playing with my boys. And when I was having fun playing with my boys, I just went out and raked. Well, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, how do we go back to just having fun with our boys, right? What are the actions we could take now to recreate that environment, right? Because really at the end of the day, it all just comes down to choosing your attitude, right? Like, let's be really trite about it. If you choose your attitude, like, hey, like I can go out and have fun today no matter what. Like, and when I'm having fun, I'm playing good. Let's just go do it. Right? Like, I don't care. It's like, the old like Manny Ramirez joke, right? Like, the guys who don't think, they just go out and play. Like, they're the ones that hit the best. Like, we can try to do that. It might be hard, but if you commit to just being like, hey, I'm going to go have fun, put a smile on my face, put some bubble gum in and just go out there and just smile for 3 hours, see what happens. Like, that could be the difference between, being gloom and doom, locked up swing breaking down, mechanics breaking down. And hey, I killed it today just because I decided to go out there and have a good attitude and have fun with it. Not easy because listen, it is a job, right? Some of you guys work in the college space. It's a job now. These guys are getting paid to do a job, and that it's not just the NIL, whatever. It's just the culture has changed, right? The transactional nature of college baseball is guys are getting cut. The rosters are getting cut down. People are transferring all the time. It's a transactional business. So now you got kids who want to have fun, but the environment's really difficult. So that's kind of my job, is to help them understand, like, hey, this is the environment. Your coach has a job to do. Your coach has a lot of responsibility. They have a lot of pressure. They've got a family to feed. Like, this is not, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that's not your problem. You understand it. You make sense of it. But then you go like, hey, I got to have fun to play well. It's pressure, whatever. But if I can just have fun, I can play well. If I can relax, if I can let my body just calm down, the heart rate go down, my muscles relax, send a signal back to my brain, everything's going to be all right. I'm not going to die if I strike out here. Like, just that little bit of messaging allows you to go out there and play the game that you've taken hundreds of thousands of swings, hundreds of thousands of pitches. You know how to play this game. You're good at this game. You would not be at the level you're at. Even high school kids. How many kids started playing 5 years old? They never play baseball again. If you're starting on a varsity team in high school, you're pretty good, right? You're good. You belong. You just got to remember how you did that the first time. And that's not easy because we only remember what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned choosing your attitude, and I really do like that. And I think it's important to get guys to understand because, and you mentioned this in passing a little bit, guys think they're only valuable or the sport can only be enjoyable if they're good, right?
Yeah.
I'm only allowed to have fun if I go 3 for 4. I'm only allowed to have fun if I'm the superstar.
Mm-hmm.
But at least from my experience, the most fun I ever had as I wrapped up my baseball career was as a bench piece. Like, just embracing that and just enjoying it and just being okay with, like, you might, like, and it's a weird way to say this to guys, but it's like, you might not be good enough to be all conference. And that's okay. Like, have fun in the situation and the role that you're in and find value in that. How do you go about that conversation?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's so the first, and I agree with you, right? Like, hey, I got to accept my situation for what it is, right? Something I would tell a kid is just because you're not playing or just because the school's not recruiting you doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means it's one person's opinion. Now, it's an important opinion, don't get me wrong, but it's just one opinion, right? So then you got to decide, why am I there, right? I'm not playing because coach thinks someone's better or more trustworthy or whatever. Do I really want to be here? You always have the choice to walk away too, right? Like, you could quit, which nobody wants to quit, but some people do. They just like, I don't want to do it anymore, or they transfer, whatever. You got to accept your role, right? This is better than not being here. Putting on a uniform and putting on a pair of spikes and putting on a hat and putting on a pair of sunglasses and hanging out with your boys in the dugout and saying a bunch of stuff you can't say anywhere else. Like, right. You got to accept that that's cool, right? Like, that is cool. To me, it's cool. Right. So then, like, getting them to buy into that and just being the best version of themselves. That's the other thing I do is, like, you don't know, just because you're not playing today doesn't mean you're not going to be playing tomorrow. You need to be ready for that. Right. And a lot of kids don't want to get ready when they're not playing because they're not motivated to do the work today. So how do we make ourselves the best version of us? Right. And how do I go out and become the best version of myself? That applies in any area of life. I'm a student. Oh, my grades are down. Like, oh, I'm not going to get. No, go get better today. Right. And so I think there's a lot of ways to slice that, Trevor, in the sense that every kid is different. That's, I think, part of the nuance of the work that I do. But, like, yes, ultimately they've got to accept where they're at and then go, what do I want to do next? Do I want to quit? Do I want to get better? Do I want to be okay with where I'm at and not do anything more or less? All that's fine, but they have to accept it. If they don't accept it, then that's where the angst comes from. Like, oh, I don't belong here. I should be playing, or I'm terrible. I shouldn't be here. Now there's all this anxiety that comes with where they should or shouldn't be versus, hey, I'm here. Let's make the most of it. That's a really hard thing to do and help someone learn how to do. It takes a lot of time to unwind some of those patterns of thinking. In that case, in your example, you made that choice for yourself and you're like, hey, I'm good. Like, only that person can make that choice for themselves.
I'm happy we're talking about this because, when you talk about accepting your role, obviously the role is given to you by a coach, and people in Trevor's situation. And I was on that staff that gave him the role of a bench guy to end his career. But how do how, in your experience, how much of some of these anxieties come from, what they think the coach thinks of them? And how do you help them navigate the coach player relationship? Because, I know, just personally speaking, from a former coach, I would love if my players came up to me and asked me questions. So how do you help them navigate kind of like I'm worried about what coach thinks and the communication piece? Because, every single person we talk to, someone in your position who's working with players, every single coach we talk to, everyone talks about how communication is the most important thing.
Yeah. And it's probably the hardest thing, right? So I'll give you an example, being very vague, but I very recently took on a new college baseball client, and he had a panic episode, right, on the field, like where it was like acute, like like he thought something was really wrong. And as I started to learn a little bit about it, I asked him, like, oh, he's like, yeah, he's like, I've never not played before, right? I'm a freshman. He's a freshman. I don't know where I stand. That uncertainty, right? Okay. I think that's a part of it, right? Like, you're used to playing, you want to play. You don't know yet what your role is going to be. Okay. How would it feel to go talk to your coach about this? And those answers vary. In his case, he's like, no, my coach is a really good guy, right? I think I can go talk to him. Okay. What do you want that conversation to sound like? Because what I counsel them on is, you're well within your rights to ask for that meeting, but you got to do it respectfully. And you got to understand that if you frame it as it's all about you, it's probably not going to go the way you want it to. Frame it as, how do I get better to contribute more? I want to contribute. I don't want to start in center field. I just want to be a contributor. How do I do that? Right? 99 times out of 100, when the kid gets the answer, they may not be happy with it, but the overwhelming response is they feel relief. Now I know where I'm at. So now that I can take that information and go do something different. And I am constantly urging kids, and I tell them this, what you just said, Dan. I said, I can't imagine there's a coach out there in college baseball, high school baseball, maybe high school baseball. There's some pretty bad coaches out there, to be honest. But in college, for sure, I can't imagine there's a coach, if you go to him and start asking him questions about how you can get better, engage him, he's not going to engage you back and be like, man, this kid is curious. He wants to get better. Like, I want that guy. He's coachable, right? Versus always asking me questions. What's wrong? He's not good. Like, he should be able to do this on his own. Who's thinking that? We all played the game. We know that in order to get better, you got to be curious. That's something I talk about. Be curious. Like, be curious about getting better. Be curious about the way you're feeling. Like, think about like what it means. So for me to get them to have that conversation is really important. Think about the other person's point of view. Empathy. Your coach is there getting paid to coach baseball. If he loses or does not fulfill some objective, he's getting fired. He's got his own kids. Like, I know you can't totally relate to that when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, but you got to at least try to factor that in and say, okay, I'm going to go have this conversation. This is what I want to get across. This is how I want it to go. And if it doesn't go the way I want it to go, how am I going to respond? Just like on the baseball field. That's what I say. Like, if your coach says this, what are you going to do? I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to slow down. Before I open my mouth and answer the question, I'm going to kind of process it. Just like baseball. Hey, I just took a bad swing at a ball. Like, rather than just jumping back in the box and trying to swing at the next one, I'm going to step out. I'm going to take a deep breath and like regather myself, step back in with a plan. Same for a conversation. Those conversations are intimidating. If you're an 18, 19-year-old kid going to talk to your college coach for the first time about your role, that's not that easy. Some kids don't want to do it. They do need to be coached through it. But I think when they start to think about what it really means and how to do it, they're like, okay, I could do that. And they're usually really happy that they did, because now there's more of a trust between the two parties versus just have this like unknown, this divide.
You mentioned, and I think it's really important for people to know this, is relief. Even when it's not the answer that the player wants, there's a level of relief, because I always used to say, you have to understand, players fill in the blanks of what you think about them if you don't communicate. And that was from the coaching side, is trying to take responsibility. When you write the lineup card, there's a kid that thought they were in a different position than they are, right? Just
Mhm.
at the end of the day, when you get through game one of the season, on Sunday of weekend one of college baseball, there's a player that hasn't played, hasn't pitched, hasn't been put in a pinch hit role that thought they would be, right? And if that wasn't communicated to said player, right, they're now filling in the blanks and saying, coach hates me. I'm in a bad position. I'm not getting a fair shot, right? All those things. So that's my next question is, how do you handle that in the transactional nature of college baseball? Because you might get a new client who comes in and he's really struggling with X, Y, and Z, and he's at a new program. And the first thing you hear him say, well, I didn't get a fair shot, or coach didn't like me, or anything like that. But then you sit there, and again, not that you throw this back in their face, but it's like, coach is getting paid to win baseball games, especially at the highest level. I don't think they're intentionally putting the worst nine out there in spite of you.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Like that might be part of the conversation. Coaches are making decisions to put the best team on the field. There's a reason, there's a method to that madness. And I just said this on another podcast. There's a method to the madness that you don't understand, but trust that there's a reason. You might not understand the reason. You might not agree with the reason, but there's a reason, right? And so I'll go back to my last point about curiosity, right? If I'm not on that lineup card and I think I should be, right? It's, hey, coach, like what could I be doing differently? Like you don't go in and say, why wasn't I on the lineup card? But you, as a player, what you want to be able to do is understand the way your coach is thinking. Oh, you know what? Here's why. We put Johnny into the lineup because he does this, or we need that, or whatever. Now you've got the reasoning and saying, okay, I understand how my coach thinks. We're not filling in the blanks. We know what the blanks are because we asked the question, right? That certainty of understanding, and it's an ongoing process, right? Like you don't just fill in the blanks once. Things are constantly changing. That's why communication is so important. And what I tell kids is like, your coaches probably don't have the time to communicate with you all the time, right? They may want to, but they can't. It's just not feasible. So you got to take ownership of your career and say, this is my career. I want to get better. And I'm also willing to go in there and live with the consequences of a conversation that goes sideways, because I got two choices. I could sit here and like imagine where I stand and what my life's going to be like at this program if I don't, I could just like be in my head all the time, or I can go ask the question knowing that, hey, maybe it does go sideways. Maybe it does piss the coach off. But what's worse, not doing anything or trying to do something and it didn't work out, right? So taking action, I think, is a big thing, and getting them ready for that. And I think, I don't know, maybe you guys have a view on this in terms of like the state of the world, but like, I just feel like, I don't know, like, I don't feel like kids are really comfortable having those conversations. So I'm coaching them through that a lot. And that's not just college, it's high school, it's travel ball, it's whatever. And even parents, coaching parents through those conversations or coaching them through those processes. Like, my kid should be playing, maybe, but like, that's just not the way it works. The coaches decide who plays. So either you got to get okay with it, do something different, or you can leave, but like, don't expect that everything is going to be catered to like your needs. Cause that ain't life. That ain't reality.
You're right into my next question. How do you handle the parents in this situation? Because even for college athletes, Coach Tom Walter talked about this when we sat down with him now a year and a half ago, how he needs to communicate with everybody in the kitchen, because when an 18-year-old doesn't see his name on the lineup card, they don't they call their parents. When a 22-year-old doesn't see his name on the lineup card, they call their parent, and the parents are that voice of reasoning. And I don't want to use reasoning because it's kind of positive connotation. It can be bad, but like, that's the voice on their shoulder of telling them like, why aren't you playing? Why does coach hate you? How do you go about handling the parent side of it?
Delicately. I mean, I think in some respects, the parents are even harder to handle because and I'm a parent, I have two teenagers who play sports. So I get it from that angle. And I do really try to empathize with them in that respect. Like I'm in it with my own daughter who's in the recruiting process, but I try to be really delicate of like, I get it. You don't have any control now. Your son has gone off to college. You don't have any say. You want your son to be happy. Him being happy is predicated on playing. Just call it what it is. Now he's not playing. Now he's unhappy. But you got to look at the big picture as a parent and say, like, listen, is it you picking up the phone and calling coach? That is not going to fly, right? So if that's an option, take it off the table, right? You can do it, but don't think that that's going to help your kid. Yeah, then you can go and you can complain with your kid and say, I can't believe you're being shorted here, right? That's fine. It'll feel good to complain like, hey, I can't believe my kid's not playing. That's probably not helpful either. Let's think about what we can control as parents to help our kid not only get on the field, but like grow as an adult. Like you're going to go to work one day and your boss is going to yell at you, or that you're going to get let go or whatever. These are the opportunities to build that resilience of like, hey, I'm not playing now, but like, what can we do now to like solidify the situation and get better? Right. I think for parents, like, I'm very sensitive to that as a parent, but like with my own children, it's, hey, I'm not playing enough. Well, what do you need to do? What do you need to do to get better? Because there's probably some reason why you're not on the field. You're not playing hard enough. You're not training hard enough. Coach has a formation that doesn't fit you. You got to go figure that out. I am not doing that for you, because when I was your age, and maybe I sound like the old head here, when I was your age, my parents didn't give a crap about baseball. They cared about putting dinner on the table. I cared about baseball. If I wanted to be better at it, I had to go do it. Like, it's not my experience. It can't be my experience, and I can't make you feel better. So with parents, I want to have them give their kids the support, but make them understand very gently and sensitively that you trying to solve the problem for them is not going to yield the best long-term result. And sometimes you're able to talk them off the ledge, and sometimes you're not.
I love that, because I personally, from my personal experience, I remember when I was playing college baseball, one of the things that I think helped me without me realizing when I was in it, now I realize it as I'm older and wiser, is when I would talk to my mother after a weekend series, she never once asked how baseball went. Are you eating? How are your grades? How's class going? Do you need anything? And like, oh, here's my mother who doesn't give a crap what I did last weekend. Like, I could have had a good weekend, a bad weekend. She couldn't care less on the field. You know, she just wanted to know how I was doing. And for me, that helped me kind of frame, I think looking back, put into perspective, like, this isn't everything. I am curious though now, because it's such a hot button topic, and I actually think you probably have a good maybe opinion or view of this. You don't have to get into specifics, but I think a lot of people who are fans of the sport or who are inside of the sport think of the transfer portal as the boogeyman, where it can be in certain situations, but I also think it's great in certain situations.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of, when guys are struggling, that they're ready to run to the portal right away? Is that something that you're seeing, or is that something that's been hyped up that you don't actually see much of? And how do you navigate if a guy's reaction right away is, I'm getting out of here? Are you like, hey, let's slow down, let's try and reframe a little bit? Walk us through a little bit of that.
I think, to be fair in answering the question, I wouldn't say that I'm central to that decision making necessarily, but yes, I think what I try to stress in those situations is thinking about what you value, right? I talk about with kids in high school who are selecting college. Think about your values. What's important to you, right? Am I going to play right away? Am I wanted? Do they have my major? Do I want to be at this part of the country? Is this coaching staff going to have my best interest at heart? I think that's the one, that last one. Does the coaching staff have my best interest at heart? Do I feel like I trust my coaches? Is the one that leads most to transfer portal decisions, right? I'm in a situation where I was recruited under one premise. I got there. It didn't play out the way that I expected, and the relationship doesn't look the way it looked in recruiting. Now I'm not sure I can trust my coaches. Okay. I think that that's a valid reason to explore the portal, right? But at the same time, there's all these other factors. Don't make an emotional decision. If I really like my school, and I really like my major, and I really like my teammates, and I really like the place I'm in, and there's all these other factors, I still have 3 or 4 years to develop as a player. That's the warning, or that's the side of the equation I try to like have kids understand. Your first year, like, you don't have to leave right away. Now, if I'm a junior and I'm not playing and I want to get at bats before my college career is over, and I'm willing to give up 3 years of relationships and education and everything to go get at bats, yeah, if that's the most important thing, do it. But have an objective criteria for making those decisions versus being emotional. Like, my coach doesn't like me, I'm not playing, I'm leaving now. That's where I would sort of counsel them to be like, hey, before you do that, think about the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Because I agree with you. I think the transfer portal, lends itself to a lot of opportunity, right? Kids who are under recruited, who come in and produce at a lower level, now have the opportunity to go play at a higher level. Like that also gives high school kids more decisions. I'm going to go play JUCO for a year. I'm going to go play in a good Division III league, and I'm going to go get at bats right away. And now I am going to market myself into the portal because I want to be a pro kid. Understanding what's important to you is really critical. Prioritizing like your values and being like, hey, like I want to do this, because before it didn't happen, and that kids were stuck for 4 years in a program. And if they transferred, they lost a year of eligibility. So there is a good side, but think about why you're really doing this, because your feelings are hurt, or because there's a really, unsustainable issue that needs to be addressed. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's where I would come into the equation. Like, hey, don't be so fast to jump until you really think through what the criteria are for making a move.
Yeah, I love that. And especially in this era, I think players, I think the transfer portal comes down to like your own perception of the world to a certain extent.
Yes.
Like if you're a pessimist, you're going to think it's all the kids looking out for themselves and selfish by nature. If you're an optimist, you think of the Division III kids that we all know, quite frankly, that we've seen that make the transition, and how impactful it is on their career and the opportunities that they're offered for that standpoint, and putting yourself in their shoes and just being like, yeah, that's awesome. Right. It gives so many different avenues. And really, if you look at it the right way, it has probably helped college baseball of all levels, because kids are more open to going to Division III schools or junior colleges and things like that.
Can I ask you guys a question back, because you're much closer to this than I am? What's your general sense of how college baseball coaches view the portal?
Give and take, right, for each program, right? Like I think obviously at some of the programs, it is a true player acquisition opportunity for them, right? Like I'm Arkansas, we can get a better player, let's go get it. We're trying to win a national championship, and a lot of times their main objective to keep guys out of it is just being those over communicators and showcasing how they develop talent and making sure those freshmen stay bought in and understand their role and their identity under the program and things like that. So it's less of an obstacle for them. And then for lower schools, it's like it's a carousel, right? Like it really is tougher for the lower schools, because they're losing their best players to better schools. They're losing the disgruntled players to same schools, and they're losing their bad players to lower schools. And like, that's where it's a real revolving door. And I'm sure Dan probably could have something that I didn't hit on, but I think for each level, it kind of has a different perspective based on the program itself.
Yeah. And I think I will say though, for the most part, every coach that we've interacted with and that we do interact with does not view it negatively like you might see some people think they do. They all understand, because even the schools that Trevor's referring to, where there is a little bit more of a revolving door, they understand that that's just how the world works now. And if coaches are one thing, I think they are really good at adjusting and finding ways to win. And most of them, I would say, have found a way to leverage it in whatever way is best for their program. And that's what's impressive to me, because there was a time where I would ask those questions off the record, and just to gauge kind of the sense of what. And no one is really negative. Sure, they might have some complaints about how this is done or the calendar. I think that's like, if you cleaned up the calendar a little bit more for these guys of when the portal happens,
that's coming, right?
Yes, I think so. I think that's their only really real complaint about it. We've talked to a coach who lost a player in August. In the beginning of August, they lost a pitcher, and he was like, I didn't have time. Like, what am I supposed to do now?
That's
School
crazy.
starts in 3 weeks, right? Or the guys who, we talked to, we were with a program who was playing deep into the postseason, and they were like, yeah, our conference rivals, we were playing baseball, and in June, our conference rivals were hosting visits every day. What were we supposed to do about it? We couldn't get those kids on campus. We're playing still. We're still in it, So that's their only complaint.
Yeah. And I asked that because, like, I think, and you're right. I think as it evolves, people just accept it that this is the new model, right? But I think the thing that comes through for me there is like, don't take it personally, right? Like from one side or the other, right? Like, it's not personal. it's sadly, it's not, it's just business. Right. And so it's like when I think I maybe talked about this with Trevor the first time, but I used to work in business. Like I got out of it and I got into sports psychology, and there's a whole backstory to that. But when someone would come in and say, hey, I was leaving to get a better job, I would never be like, I can't believe you're leaving. No, man, you got to do what's best for you. That's awesome, man. Congratulations on the opportunity. If I go out and hit it at a low major level and I hit 450 and an SEC school wants to bring me in, how could you begrudge a kid that? Like, come on, it's crazy, right? And they're going to get paid to do it now, most likely. So, like, now you adjust, and now you're like, okay, like now I've got to develop a new model of how do I recruit? Like, what kinds of kids do I want to recruit? Do I want to have a development model? Am I going to just go year to year, whatever? But you adopt it and you address it, and it's not personal, right? And I think that goes both ways for a kid. It's not personal. Coach just got to adjust. If you're not playing, there's a reason why. There's a whole philosophy that goes on in the coach's office that you know nothing about. So just focus on you. Either try to get, and actually this is a conversation I've had, is like kids who are freshmen who thought they were going to have a role coming in based upon the way they were recruited in the fall and all this stuff, who now aren't seeing that come to fruition. I'm not traveling the first weekend. We talked about this a little bit. I said, you got to be ready, because if you get at bats, you want to be able to have productive at bats so you can put that information into the portal at the end of your year. If you genuinely want to leave your program, you got to be ready to perform, and you can't let it get in your feelings. Be ready, go out and do your work like a professional every day. Get ready to hit. When you get a call to pinch hit in the ninth inning, you're ready. Mentally, you're locked in. You're like, hey, I'm going to go put a good swing on this. Why? I might only get 10, 15, 20 at bats, but if I go 7 for 17 in limited time, I at least got something to put into the portal, shows that I have some capability. Some coaches are going to look at that and say, hey, okay, like there's something. I mean, that's, I think if you're going to look at the portal as an option, then you got to be ready to be professional so that when your chance comes, you're taking advantage of it. Not like I'm going in the portal to spite my coach because he doesn't like me. And then when he calls me to go into a game on mop-up duty, I'm checked out. Who the hell's going to want to recruit you in the transfer portal? So now you got to be ready, right? You got to be mentally prepared to play even when the circumstances aren't what you want them to be. And that is a conversation I'm finding myself having with players.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you almost have to trick them to stay motivated, and then it probably increases their experience at the school they're at, and then they get to the end of the year and they go, that year wasn't that bad. It's like, yeah, I mean, having that conversation, and it was 100%. It's like, yeah, great. Said coach from said program that you're mentioning who saw you pitch in the winter or saw you pitch in the summer, great. Go pitch to a 56 and watch that guy block your number. He's not calling. Like, they need guys who can get out. So you don't just get to throw one bullpen and think you have a guaranteed roster spot in the transfer. No, you have to go out and perform. We have to have concrete evidence to evaluate on and give you that opportunity, because there's somebody else. I mean, nowadays, especially on the pitching side, there's 500 kids, it feels like, that are 91 to 93 with big frames.
Goodness.
Right? They're everywhere. They're on street corners. So you had a 56, wild. Other one had a 7. We're taking the kid with the 7, right? And I will say, on the coaches side, the last thing that I thought of, we have reached this honey hole in the transfer portal where coaches have accepted it. I think if we were 3 years ago, there might have been a little bit more of the jadedness, but I think coaches are doing a great job of, if you're losing players. I mean, you saw Sacramento State last year when Wahiwa Loy won the Golden Spikes. They're putting graphics together.
Yeah,
pictures
they're using it as a marketing tool. He was our guy.
He was our guy. We found him,
Absolutely.
right? And there's value in that. So I do think we've reached this point where coaches know, if you're still jaded to it, you're getting lapped by your competition, because not only are your conference rivals doing it, everybody's doing it. They're laughing at you to the bank while they take your players, right? All those things. So I think more coaches at more programs are saying, kid comes in, they know, right? Like, we're a mid-major program. You went off, LSU's calling. I'll pack your bags for you and we're going to root for you. Right. And but it goes both ways, right? Like you said, with the player, like, we also know of coaches that are calling in their whole pitching staff at the offseason, say, you ain't got nothing. Nope, we're freaking rolling through. Like, we're getting 15 new guys because we stunk last year and my job's on the line. Right. So like, you have to, and that's where I think the ego of coaches really comes into play, is like, if you're going to be mad at either side at the player leaving, you can't kick 15 guys off your roster. Like, you got to be loyal to them if you want top player to be loyal to you, which I think they now understand now.
Yeah, I think it's a process of developing a philosophy about how we're going to approach, right? We're going to have We're going to have a clear developmental or process internally in terms of this is the way we're going to do things. So there's transparency, right? I think Dan used the word over communicate, maybe in the context of coach to player, but you're also communicating to the baseball community. This is the way we're going to do things. So then you're going to attract those kinds of players, right? So that now you've got like this marketing window of this is the way we're going to do things. These are the kinds of kids we're going to take, right? Now everybody sort of understands, and it just narrows things down a little bit. So I think just not taking it personally, it's hard to do with a 19-year-old kid who sees his whole life in baseball, but yeah, you can't take it personally. You just got to go out there and try to get better, right? Again, it's simple. It sounds simple. It sounds, we all say it, just get better, focus on what you can control. Kid doesn't hear that all the time. It's really that constant, like, brainwashing, that messaging, that like adherence to, hey dude, just go get better today, because you never know when you're going to get your chance, and you never know if you're going to have to be in the portal, and you're never going to know when you look back at 25 years old, you're going to look back one day and look in the mirror and go like, you know what, I didn't do everything I could do to be the best player I could be. Now I regret it. And now it leads to some, unfortunately, some negative impact in your life outside of sports that you're like regretful and that you're sad or you're angry about. Hey, I didn't give everything I could to this career, and now I'm, feeling regret about what I did. There's a whole, you guys know this, right? Once you're done playing ball, like, who am I? Like that's like, so like there's a whole bunch of it. It's so super complicated. And I guess at the end of the day, when I'm doing my work, it's really the way I try to differentiate myself. This is not to say other people don't do it, but this is the way I think about it is I really try to understand what that person is going through, right? The way they interpret the world. Now we got to use that against them in some ways. Like, hey, now I know, like we now to try to point you in that direction. But if you don't have that understanding and just say, hey, I'm going to treat Johnny, Stevie, and Tommy all the same, and say, you just go work on a reset routine this same way, it's not going to land the same way. You got to find the thing that like can make sense to them so that they can then go apply and go like, hey, this makes sense. It's my idea. This is great. This is meaningful versus, oh, this is just another thing some coach told me to do and it's not working. Right. Like that's the fight I fight every single day.
Well, that's a perfect way to wrap this conversation up. And as always, again, there's so many points. I have questions in my head that I think we could run another hour on and having those conversations. So I'm sure it won't be the last time that we talk to you. But if you're listening to this and maybe you're intrigued by what Michael is saying, where can they find you?
Just go to my website, michaelvhuber.com. Best way to get anything. Contact me, whatever. Reach out anytime.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Michael, we appreciate your time. And I know everybody who listened to this it probably took a ton of notes and learned a ton from you today. And I know Dan and I would agree that it was an enjoyable hour, and we definitely learned a lot of things and have a lot of preparation in place as we start the season. High school baseball starting soon. And obviously colleges across the country have opened this weekend. So if you're still listening, make sure you smash that subscribe button. YouTube, Backside Ground Balls Media, Baseball Development Hub Podcast. Follow on Spotify. Leave a 5-star review, comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know some conversations that you want us to have. If we want to have Michael back on, drop some questions that we can explore if you're a player or parent who wants a perspective on that. But that'll do for this episode of the Baseball Development Hub